Laptop. Good evening and welcome back to the channel. We are live. We are live, and we want Celtic fans view this evening. We are live, and just tell me if the sound is okay or not. Let's stop. Let's just check if the sound is okay. There's a few people watching, and it is. The sound and the sound is fine. We can get back to the Celtic news. The sound is perfect this time. Never buy StreamYard. It's the worst software out there. Anyway, back to the Celtic news. If the sound is okay, tell me in the comments just if the sound is okay. It sounds okay at this end, but the Celtic news, as it stands tonight, is the fact there's lots of Celtic news. Right, it sounds perfect. Let's go with it. Yeah, the Celtic news this evening. Welcome back. Let's start again. Let's start again. Let's all start again. Sounds great. Perfect. Yeah, I'm getting rid of that other software. It's absolutely nonsense. Right, the Celtic news that is kicking about David Turnbull. Big news on David Turnbull. In fact, he didn't start the game. And when you think about the fact that he's a midfield player that could score goals for outside the box, um, I thought it was a bit disappointing that well, we knew he was never going to start the game, but it looks like he is on his way out the door. Yesterday, Leicester were um, in the frame to put their name in the hat for his services. But it's been suggested by Sports Witness that AC Milan are in for a potential move for David Turnbull, who they are considering to be a very interesting profile to be looked at as they try to bring him in the January window. They know that he's out of contract in the summer, and they reckon that the Celtic will be easy to deal with. He will be. They reckon that he's good at blocking and initiating action. David Turnbull, this is what they reckon. He's good at blocking and initiating. Let's just hope they give us some good money for him, because he looks like he's on his way to the door. He will have his choice of clubs. There's several Italian clubs seemingly looking at him, and with seven goals he scored this season in 11 games, it could be another Lewis Ferguson that buggers off to Italy and has a good wee career. And there was a Celtic player that also went over to Italy previously, young guy for Edinburgh, and he had a pretty decent career, and he still has over there. Looks like Celtic are looking to sign another Benfica ex-player or Benfica B player. A 22-year-old is under contract with his team until 2025. He's 6 foot tall, but he has a big physicality difference between him and Greg Taylor, the current first choice in left back. He's 6 foot tall. Now, with the fact that we're out of the Champions League now, we need Brendan Rodgers admitting it's now glaring that we want more people that can play at the higher level. He's 22-year-old. We're going to pay 4 million for him. It puts him in the same bracket as Rocky and Cole that we brought in the summer. Is that the type of player? Is that the type of player that we need to be bringing in? Another 22-year-old at 4 million. I think it's unbelievable if we do, but you never know. You never know. It could just all be transfer talk. It is. The guy that's talking about it, Steve McGowan, he has been right with a lot of Celtic transfers before now. They need players that have gained more experience at that level and show that they can compete. As a 22-year-old that's played in Portugal, that type of player. Tell me that in the comments. Anyway, big news that Fabrizio Romano has been talking about today, and this will get Celtic fans excited purely by at least he's Portuguese left back and he's 6 foot, says smell the glove. Yep, yeah, at least he does that have that going for him. Anyway, let's get back to the big. Celtic will be rubbing their hands because Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that Arsenal are keen to sign Jeremy Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen. Now, he has now said that Frimpong has a release clause, which has never been spoken about before, but he does have a release clause of £34 million. If he does have that release clause and he does go for 34 million, it's going to be the bargain of the summer. They reckon the bargain of the summer, and Celtic will get a massive £8 million share of that jackpot. £8 million share of that jackpot in the summer. If he does, well, it looks like he will go in the summer. So £8 million to add on to the 72 million that was sitting in the bank, and not to put in the season ticket money for this season, and not to put in the money from the Champions League this season. We're going to be sitting with over £100 million in the bank the time the summer transfer window comes around, which will be fantastic for the board, and I'm sure they'll give themselves a nice clap of hands together. Now, it's been suggested this afternoon that the Green Brigade will be getting back into Celtic Park the next game. And it comes on the day that the police announced that there's been 11 people arrested with a disorder at football match charges after the Motherwell Celtic game on September the 30th. And that was one of the things that the board had been talking about. The trouble was before and after the match, as well as during 90 minutes. There's only been 11 arrests. So, and it's all young guys. It's young guys, it's men. There's guys between the ages of 15 and 30 who have been arrested for it. They will now have football banning orders in place, so they won't get back into the Celtic Park. Hence the reason that Celtic have probably turned around and said, right, the Green Brigade can get back in because the troublemakers are no longer there. Reports have been submitted to the Procurator Fiscal, so good luck with that, guys. And they'll probably get off it because the justice system in Scotland's total nonsense. Anyway, let's move on and get some of the comments up, and then we'll talk about the game last night. We still have 100 million when the window closes, and don't spend money. Yep, that's true. Right there. Welcome back. Baz says, John. James says, it sounds great. Graham Hardy, how are you? Tom Mack, I'm just going to quickly jump through these. Get Forrest and Taylor to drive him to the airport and hopefully they'll come back. Oh, dear. Brendan Rodgers has to take responsibility. Just move that camera down a bit. Brendan Rodgers has to take responsibility for his team's tactics on the pitch. He's been making excuses for most of the season. The team are playing too slowly when they have the ball. Exactly. Are the players doing what they're told? And maybe he doesn't think that the players... The one thing that Brendan has been saying, he's been saying for weeks now, he's been saying consistently, it is all about inexperience. Now, he's been saying it since the beginning of the Champions League. And I think that he thinks that the players that they've brought in don't have the experience. If it's true that we're going to go for a 22-year-old from Portugal, it's in the exact same age bracket of what we've been buying so far, and it's unbelievable. Just because he played in the B team with Jota and Paulo Bernardo at Benfica doesn't say to me that he's got great experience when it comes to European football level at the highest level. But you never know. You never know. We managed to get Jota in, and maybe this guy's been kicking around in the backwater somewhere, and somewhere that's how we're getting our heads up with him. But paying £4 million for him, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what happens with that one. Jeremy Frimpong one, that's going to be fantastic for Celtic. It's good that he's finally getting his move. It's been spoken about for a while now. The fact that this release clause has now been come out in public, that Frimpong has got 34 million release clause. Now, they were speaking last summer that he was valued at 50 million. Maybe that's what was putting teams off down in England. They weren't prepared to pay the 50 million. But as it gets into the later part of his contract, or what, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but he has a release clause of 34 million, and that'll bank Celtic a crazy amount of money. As long as he's first team ready, says Helen. Will he be first team ready, though? This is the thing. Is it going to be another player that we're going to bring in? And is I don't know. I don't know anything about the player. So until we know something about him, a bit more information, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. The sound is better. Baz, hail, boys and girls. Hail you too, Tone up, Patrick. 8 million more in the bank. Yep, just another 8 million more in the bank. Where do we go from there? Anyway, Lazio and PSG fans are the most rotten fans I've ever seen. Yes. When you look at some of the videos that I got sent last night, and what went on before the game, the fact that they went through as many police cordons as they did, and then when they were in the stadium, they were getting pelted with fireworks and everything. So we'll wait and see. Nothing will happen. We'll wait and see how big a fine it will. In fact, I wonder if the Scottish media. I wonder if the Scottish media will tell the Scottish press and everyone how much Lazio will get fined for the fireworks, for the pyro that were thrown at Celtic fans. That would be interesting. Of course they won't. Of course they won't. Anyway, Lanky. If we do Tiago, it'll be the third Benfica player was signed within 18 months, 2 years. We've got Benfica analyst Antonio Terga. Yeah, it seems to be he's getting the man for the scouting in Portugal. That's an interesting one, Lanky. I didn't know that one. Maybe it is. Maybe that's why we're picking up all these players. I mean, what do you think of Paulo Bernardo? Is he going to turn into a really cracking player? I think the jury's still out on him yet. He's still not done enough yet. But Brendan Rodgers seems to think that he can go all the way. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see with that one. Big Dom says, why would we recruit in January if we are out of Europe? Surely summer is a better option. Dom, it's better to try and get. It's a hard time to get players in the summer because a lot of players hang about and wait to try and get, and clubs trying to get as much money as they can. Hence the reason that we go bargain hunting at the end of the window. Ange Postecoglou used to go out and get his players in early. If you know the player that you're after, get them in as early as you can. If you can get them in so that they're bedded in. Remember, we will have some players away at the Asia Cup also. This is the reason that we're trying to get players in this January. Because we will have Kyogo, Hatate, Dice and Maida all away at the Asia Cup. And O will be away also. So... why did we get them in January? I want them in January. I want a goalkeeper in January so that he's bedded in and ready, and that the team have a togetherness by the time that the beginning of the season comes around, and then we're ready for the Champions League. That's what we have to be forward planning. We have to be forward planning. Anyway, whatever Frimpong goes for, 30% sell-on clause. Yep, Lanky, it's a 30% sell-on clause. The fact that the prices came down dramatically, but Fabrizio Romano has confirmed interested by Arsenal this afternoon. He said that Arsenal are just one of the names that are in for the 22-year-old. You've got to remember, he's only just 22. Shows you how young that we had him and we sold him for, what was it, 10 million or something. He was just a kid. And the fact that we've got this 30% selling clause is fantastic. But he is only 22. We're going on about bringing in a player that's first team ready, that's 22, and we're going to spend 4 million. It's all about levels, isn't it? It's all just about levels and what we can afford as a club. We're going to be a long season playing Brendan Ball. Yep, 34 million release clause for Burnley. He's going to shot themselves in the foot, way too cheap. I think it's a good selling clause when they've probably thought they'd maybe get a quick turnover on him. It's a fantastic selling clause, but Portuguese. Let's get back to the Portuguese player transfer heating up. Doesn't get me excited from our project signings. I'm disappointed in Rodgers as he's now Lowell's puppet, says Stuart. Smell the Glove says Portugal at least produce decent footballers. They do that. We are letting this board off. We're letting us, when the game we get back in the stadium, we need the atmosphere back. It's been suggested that they're going to be in the next game, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. It always happens. The police have obviously have made 11 arrests for the whole Motherwell game shenanigans, and hopefully that'll get it put to bed, and we'll get back to normal and just talking about football and not what's going on in the stands. So let's get back. Mark wants live out now, and Lanky says, Michael, as fans can say anything about the boards, but nothing is going to happen. I realise that years ago, before Lanky, you've been there and done it as long as I have. Nothing will ever change. Nothing will ever change. Not a thing. Not a thing. Surely Brendan was given assurances on quality before taking the job. What do you think, Dom? I think he was given assurances on transfer budgets and bringing in players, and that he would have the final say. I think he's a bit different from Ange Postecoglou, where Ange would go and say to the scouting, "This is the type of player I need." And maybe Brendan does it as well. This is the type of player I need. Go and get the player for me, and give me what we can afford. And that's what it comes down to. But the fact is that we're sitting with so much money in the bank. Sitting with so much money in the bank, it's disappointing that the club aren't just going out there and making sure that we do get a decent level of player in. Is £4 million good for a 22-year-old? He must be some player if we're going to go and spend. But then Rocky was about 4 million, and he's hardly kicked a ball all season. Right, let's check out some more Celtic headlines. Top marks, Dex, Stephen McGowan, and the legacy of the Lisbon Lions dismantled. Hey, oh my goodness, I need to read this one. I need to read this one. It's an article that has just been released. The legacy of the Lisbon Lions has been dismantled by Celtic after crashing out the Champions League to Lazio. As Brendan Rodgers' side set embarrassing record in Europe. I knew this was going to start coming out. Hours before Celtic slid into the latest Champions League defeat in Rome, reports emerged interest in a 21 under 21 international Tiago, the former Benfica B team. He was in the same team as Jota and Paulo Bernardo as younger, and he has some international experience at the under 23 level. He has experience, and they've got a £4 million price tag on him. He'll meet the criteria applied to almost all recent acquisitions. The consequences of this policy were evident once again on Tuesday night with the 2-0 defeat to Lazio. It's a little bit of the same old story, admitted Callum McGregor after the game. Yeah, that was one of Callum McGregor's best comments ever. But let me just where he goes on. Since securing qualification for the last 16 of the Champions League under Neil Lennon in December 2012, Celtic have played in 29 group stage games. Out of the 29, they've won 2, drawn 6, and lost 21, taking 12 points from a possible 87 with a goal difference of minus 57. So even going back 11 years now to 2012 since the last time, I mean, we've done absolutely nothing. We've brought in different managers, and there's only one common denominator. There is only one common denominator in the last 10, 12 years, and that is the board. That is the board. Let's get to some. Not about the money. It's all about the player and the work ethic. It's also, Kevin. It's also about getting a type of player that can have the quality at this level. But then again, it could be the manager. You need a man. But then we had a good manager the last 2 seasons, and we've done absolutely nothing. So there has to be. Yeah, Stuart. These stats are scary. Those stats are scary. I mean, I'm just looking at them, and it's unbelievable. Where did that go? When you look at this, the extended stats to all UEFA, this is all UEFA competitions and knockout games over the last decade. 16 wins from 31 Champions League, 44 Europa League games, and 2 Conference League ties. The last one of any description in the Champions League was 6 years ago, when Brendan Rodgers agreed. It was spoke that he was restoring the club to a competitive European level. I just hood my pint, Brendan. Hood my pint while I go and spew. The timing of the injuries at the start of the season to Cameron Carter-Vickers, Rio Hatate, Leila Bada cannot be underestimated. Let's face it. I mean, having Rio Hatate and Leila Bada out for the majority of this campaign. Oh, wait a minute. We're saying that. Come on. Leila Bada wasn't. He was in and out of the team last year. Hatate, yes. Since the summer of 2022, Celtic have signed wait till you hear. Since the summer of 2022, Celtic have signed 23 players. Too many to contributed. Too bloated, inexperienced squad, unable to cope with the demands of the Champions League. Of the 9 players who signed in the summer, you've got Rocky, Gustav, Kwon have all struggled to make first team squad. The only positive notes from the summer has been Lewis Palmer and Yang. They've offered signs of promise. They've offered big signs of promise. Little in the way of consistency. They've been Palmer's just getting into the team. He's had a good little run, and let's see how far Palmer can go. Midfield players, Odin lasted 45 minutes against Motherwell. Nat Phillips was brought in because of the injuries. Paolo Bernardo, Marco Tillo haven't yet shown anything. Let's face it, Marco Tillo's only played 7 minutes since he came in. That's an unbelievable stat. Since the summer of 2022, Celtic have signed 23 players. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Celtic's board need to spend a large chunk of the 72 million that's sitting in the bank to redevelop the Barrowfield training facility. £20 million is going to that. Tax will swallow up a chunk. Beyond that, the balance offers, what is it? At a time when other super clubs are spending 70 million on one player, signing players in the 7 and 8 million bracket doesn't guarantee us success at this level. Hopefully we're switching the Champions League to a 36 team table, and knockout football will depend on finishing somewhere about 9th in the 24. On current evidence, will Celtic even get to 9th? Celtic are going to be waiting. But on current evidence, right, over the Champions League over this season, with Brendan Rodgers, do you think that with a different format we would finish further up the league? Not a chance. Not a chance. Surely we would get more than one draw. I think is it 10 games that we'll play in the Champions League next season? Surely we'll get more than just 1 point. Every time Maida is subbed or not playing, you see the pace and effort drop. Maida's out injured, so when you look at all these players, Maida's out injured. Kyogo isn't performing. Um, Let's try and be positive. The last night is unsurprising result. We all feel empty. It's embarrassing, says Lorna. Bloody embarrassing that the board won't change. We all know that. But it's not fair on the fans who spend a fortune travelling and supporting the team. Yeah, and they do. I mean, they do spend a lot of money. And who's seen the pictures? I don't know if you're on Paul's Facebook. Paul the Tim had a meeting with the Pope today, as well as the Celtic team. So they stayed overnight just to meet the Pope the next day. We need pace and muscle. It's 8 games next year. I've just logged on. What have you missed? You've missed quite a bit. We've missed the fact that Turnbull has been scouted by AC Milan. David Turnbull's now been scouted by AC Milan. So I'll give you a quick run over everything that we've went through so far. AC Milan are looking for a potential move for Celtic midfielder David Turnbull. They know that he's out of contract at the end of the summer, the end of this campaign, and they reckon that Celtic will be easy to deal with and they can get him at the next transfer window. Has a deal been broken verbally? This is what they're talking about. The fact that his contract expires in 2024, a sale in January makes sense to everyone involved. And obviously the Portuguese left back, left midfield player, whatever you want to call him, and that's been muted. And Jeremy Frimpong is going to net Celtic £8 million because Fabrizio Romano has confirmed today that Arsenal are in for the hunt for him at a bargain 34 million because he has a release clause which has been made public. He's got a release clause in his contract of 34 million. So a move next summer looks more likely than ever. And then we've just been talking about Celtic in Europe. Switching to a 36-team table, knockout football depend on finishing somewhere between 9th and 24th. Can Celtic even finish 24th in a group stage? Depends on this draw, and we'll get 8 games. We'll obviously get 4 at home and 4 away. Can we expect Celtic to do better next season? When Celtic have their best 11 available, can we compete? Yes, last year we showed that we can compete. We still got beat. So we really, we're talking, people are saying, why are we buying clubs? Why are we buying players during the next window? Why don't we wait till the summer? and try and get the best players in. It's all about getting the quality we need in to try and make sure that, for me, is to make sure that the team is gelled as much as possible. Despite having a record revenue, Celtic, of 119 million as the champions, Celtic are likely to end in the coefficient table in 58th position this year, which isn't good, falling down the table. In contrast, when you look at AZ Alkmaar, right, they have a revenue of just 30 million and they'll sit 32nd in the coefficient table. When you look at clubs around Europe that don't have the revenue that we have, you know, Celtic's approach, directors are risk averse, of giving anything, and it's all about, when it comes down to it, it's all about the fact that the board and everyone on the board wants to make sure that we are just there for the money when it comes to the Champions League. They want to make sure that we're dominant in Scotland. They want to make sure that they win the league. And after 20 years of domination, we've had 20 years of pretty much dominating Scottish football. Let's know, I mean, the run to 9 in a row was fantastic. But when you look back 23 years now, we've dominated much of those. We've dominated a massive chunk of the last 23 years in Scottish football. Is it now just, are we just going to accept it that winning the league is that it? When you look how far up the coefficient table, the likes of AZ Alkmaar, and they only have a revenue of 30 million. So there's teams out there, there's teams in Europe that are doing things right. Stockpiling money in the bank offer some kind of insurance against failure about getting into the Champions League. That is Lawwell's exact words in the comment that he put out after, you know, it was all about making sure, because we know, as Lawwell said, he said, we know that it's not guaranteed that we'll get into the Champions League every year. Now, the fact that everyone's starting to talk about it. You know, it is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing year in, year out, different manager, but expecting a different outcome. We've had Neil Lennon, right? We go back to Gordon Strachan. So we've had Neil Lennon, we had Ronnie Dyler, we then brought in the man that we thought was our saviour, and Brendan Rodgers, right? After that, Lenny comes back. We still don't do anything in Europe. Then we go for an Australian manager that's played. Let's go a little bit off ball and see what we can do then. We're bringing in all these managers, but they're all working under the same narrative. You know, they're all working under the same narrative of the board. It's time that the board have a good look at themselves. You know, if you're not going to spend the money, if you're not going to have that little bit of risk, expecting something different year in, year out is just not going to happen. And don't say it's the luck of the draw, because this season was probably the best draw that we've had in years, in absolutely years. Right. Anyway, the rewards won't take the risk. Yeah, they want the rewards, but they won't take the risk. This is very, very true. Something has to be done. Something has to be done with the young players. The experiment of the Lowland League without promotion is not cutting it. Yeah, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. And we're putting our own youth players out on loan whilst we're buying a 22-year-old, at 4 million. Another one. We're putting 22-year-old players out on loan. It's absolutely nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Pam says, is this the Benfica boy? Yeah, it's the Benfica boy. Well, ex-Benfica. Those asking why we should sign players in January to guarantee the title and 60 million it brings. Yes. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much why we do it. Why we just go out and make sure that we've got the scope. But then we are going to lose a lot of players, so we should have been forward thinking months before. You tell Baz, and Baz, they won't. It's time, Baz, but they won't. The board are not interested in the fans, says Paul. They're just wanting their money, give themselves big bonuses and big pay rises, big pay rises. Yep, it feels the same. Look, there's the ambition at Celtic goes no further than beating the Rangers, beating whatever form of Rangers is kicking about at the time, whether it was the old one before they died back in 2012 or this new co that's now kicking about. It's, you've got to beat what's in front of you. And the ambition of the board is just make sure you sit at the top of the Scottish table. Make sure you sit at the top of the Scottish table. And all that does is it makes the game completely dire, because you've now got teams that 10 years ago would come out and attack Celtic. You've now got teams that will just sit back and not do anything for 80 minutes. Contain us as much as they can, and then have a go. Have a go for 10 minutes, and that's it. And it's killing the Scottish game. It's killing the Scottish game. It is completely killing the Scottish game. Over 40 years since we produced a real quality striker, and Charlie Nicholas, that's the disgrace. And there has been some Celtic strikers that have come through and done not too bad. Maybe not. Yeah, there has. Anyway, there's two players in the team that worth their weight, and that's CZV and Kyogo, who's been playing out of position. Is Kyogo coming back to try and mix up the play, though? I mean, we all know that he's good, but it's not. We're not. Let's face it, we're not moving forward fast enough. We're not moving forward fast enough. Losing patience with the board. The greedy board says 1888 CFC. Also, the youth team should be bringing through one player each year a season. If the coaches are not doing that, and maybe they're not the ones. Good Celtic men that they may be. Well said, Irishman. Well said. It's all good having the people that we do have in the B team, and they know Celtic inside out. But when it comes to training and making the players better and making sure that they're ready for the first team, they just don't seem to be doing it. They don't seem to be doing it. People are talking about boycott of the Feyenoord game. The board couldn't care as ticket money is already in the bulging bank. Yeah, it's already in there. Is there seriously people talking about boycotting the Feyenoord game? Celtic fans will not do that. Not in mass numbers. Not in mass numbers. I could see them doing it for the fact that they've paid for their ticket. They'll not have to pay for travel with the bus. They're not going to pay. It's a cold December night. It's going to be a cold December night, and they're thinking, nothing to play for. Nothing to play for. It's going to be like a friendly. So they might not turn up to the game on that note, but as a fan base, as a huge amount of numbers, look, if they're not going to back the Green Brigades and they're not going to sing at games when the Green Brigade are not there, they're not going to boycott a game in any kind of mass numbers. You might get 3,000 or 4,000 that will just not turn up anyway. And then maybe go down as, oh yeah, the boycott was X amount, but I don't believe that. Don't believe it. I can't guarantee this board members who went to the game last night sat in luxury. Yes, they would have. They would have. I didn't stand and the pissing the rain for months in '93, calling for change to have a dictatorship 30 years later. Yeah, when I think back to the 90s, 93, 94, 95, 91, 92, Leon Brady years, we suffered such a lot back then, and it's a different fan base now. It is a different fan base. It's a different type of fan that goes to games. The Prawn Sandwich Brigade has fully moved in. We're trying to be a bit more like what it is down in England and what it is around. It's meant to be a fan day experience. The old bygone days of standing up and singing and backing your team are slowly dying. They're slowly dying, and it's been taken over by ultras in Scotland and all around Europe. So we just need to say, FC Snide is brutal tonight with Seth Collins calling all over it, talking garbage. I don't believe that anybody went on to that tonight. It's absolutely nuts that any Celtic fan would go on a radio station from Glasgow to listen to. It's basically Rangers FM. Anyway, but you get a lot of Celtic fans, and now it's even worse that it's on YouTube. You get them going onto there and just watching it. Anyway, what do we do? If anything, boycott the new kits they release. Pam, kids put pressure, and Celtic have always sold massive number of strips. There's other ways that they can get to the club. The other clubs ban their ultras, and not in Europe. Not I don't know. Nah, they wouldn't dare. They wouldn't dare. they have too much a say in the way that their clubs run. They're more intertwined with club and European football. You remember is priced. I mean, you look at the Germany where and Italy where the ultras kind of started. If you look at the fan base in Germany, they're that intertwined and they have that much say in what goes on in the club. Our club, like it or not, our club's trying to run itself like a club down in the English Premiership without the money, and that's it. Clubs should be reorganised as they do on the continent. Separate football department who receive a budget. Any player trading split 40% between the club and football. That's never going to happen with Celtic. Never going to happen. The club's run by mafia men. Always look as high. Yep, smell the glove. That was the best song that we ever sang back in the 1990s. Always look on the bright side of life. And that was one tune that got the whole Celtic Stadium up and singing. And even though there were still plenty of IRA songs got sung back in those days, a lot of IRA songs. Looking like Celtic will struggle to attract better players because of what's happened in Europe. Do you think so, Buttons? Because I think it's the type of player that we're going for is in the age range of sort of 22 to 24, with a little bit of experience of some sort of playing in Europe. So I don't know. I think they'll always come to Celtic because they think it's a stepping stone, and that's the only reason that we get a lot of players is because people see it as a stepping stone to the English Premiership, and that's probably what's going to happen. When any players that we do have, do Liverpool ban their ultras? Liverpool don't have ultras. Liverpool don't have ultras. I don't think there's ultras in the English Premiership at all. It's more they're still stuck in the casual era of the late 80s. Did Lazio fans throw flares at ours last night? Yes, they did. They threw flares inside the ground, inside the game, directly into the Celtic fans. I'm surprised that none of the Celtic fans have managed to put it up on YouTube or anything yet. But yeah, there's a couple of videos I've seen where Lazio fans threw flares into the Celtic fans. As soon as fans take an attitude, that's it. Them versus the board will struggle to win. Nah, it's never going to happen. There's too many people that back the board. Our fan base, there's too many people that think, and you've got to remember as well, is there's certain, what should I say, there's certain media outlets that are, there's certain Celtic fan medias that are right up Lawwell's ass. There, I said it, I don't care. There's certain Celtic media outlets that are right up Lawwell's ass, and they'll print anything that Lawwell tells them. Anyway, we have been on for 37 minutes. Thank goodness the sound sorted itself out. And there's not as many people jumping on the lives as there used to be. Benfica fans threw them in the last match and they were banned. Stupid Rangers fans making out the Celtic fans who threw the flares at Lazio fans. Yes, that's what you would expect. That's what you'd expect. Anyway, who backs the board? Quite a lot of the people in the main stand, unfortunately, and around the stadium. It's quite a lot. Another week, I've got myself a ticket for the Player Awards. If you're going, I might see you there. It's a money making. It's a good thing to go and see. It's a good thing to go and see, and then the players will be whisked off to their little thing, and hopefully we'll win the league. But that's the board milking it. That's the board milking it. And it is a fantastic event, but I struggle to get excited about these type of things now. There's too many. Don't even say it. Don't even say it. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to call it quits for this evening because let's face it, I am done and dusted talking about Celtic. And it's just one of those nights where it's the night after what happened. Celtic are going around showing pictures of them meeting the Pope and everything today. I'm going for the players, nothing else. Quite right, Lanky. Quite right. On that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world.